Hi, I'm Amy. Thank you for tuning in. I'm not really sure where May went, but here we are. It's nearly June and I didn't read that many books this month. So May was an interesting month for me because I've got a few different writing projects that I'm working on, none of which I can talk about yet. And I found that took up a lot of my time because for me, my reading and writing time tends to be when my baby's sleeping, either during naps or in the evening. So this month I had to concentrate on writing, but I'm still really pleased with the amount of reading I managed to do. And I actually read some fantastic books this month. So I'm going to tell you about those books and tell you about the books that I am excited about reading next month. So I think the first book I finished this month was Fangs by Sarah Andersen. And this was a fantastic start to the month. I'm trying to read more books in different forms like comics and manga, and I just really loved this, how it had a sort of linear story, but also you could read it as little snippets about the love story between a vampire and a werewolf. And I just thought that the artwork was fantastic, the story was really cute, and there were some quite deep moments about what it's like to be in love as well as what it's like to be in love with either a vampire or with a werewolf. So I definitely recommend this for comic fans and for fans of genre fiction, vampires, werewolves too. So that was a really good start to the month. So the next book I read this month was Vampires of Moscow by Caedis Knight. And it's been a while since I've read a paranormal adult book, but this is the first in a series. There are a couple more titles available and I think 2 more coming out later this year. And I'll definitely be checking them out because it's a really compelling mystery where the main character Saskia is sent to Moscow to investigate the disappearance of some workers who are linked to this mysterious vampire family ruled by 2 brothers. And I really liked the relationship between the brothers and how they got to know Saskia. And it's one of those books where you try and figure out who you can trust, and this one completely took me by surprise. So I loved it. I'm going to read the other books in the series, and yeah, that's definitely got me back into a genre that I haven't read for a while. So the next book I read this month, actually I finished 2 books in quick succession. So this is the third of the books I read this month, which is Hexed by Julia Tuffs. And it's hard to explain, is it a contemporary? Is it paranormal? It's a little bit of both. And basically the main character discovers that she's a witch and that she comes from a line of witches, and coming back to the island where her family are from reawakens her powers, and she also discovers that they are linked to her period. So when she feels period pain, she is at her most powerful. And I really love how this book is funny and quirky, so fans of Holly Bourne will really enjoy it. But also it has this deeper message of feminism and questioning the patriarchal values that society still imposes on, in this case, teenage girls. And it really looks at how women and girls are treated, and the main character Jessie uses her powers in a way that helps to stand up to that and makes people question it. So it's a fantastic book for somebody who wants to explore feminism, but it's also a really, really fun story as well as being deep. And I think that that's a really difficult thing, to deal with difficult subjects but in a way that still makes for a fun read. So absolutely love this one. I can't wait to see what Julia Tuffs writes next because this is her debut novel. I think that her future writing will be absolutely fantastic too. So my next read this month was Midnight in Everwood by Mia Kuzniar. And just take a moment first to enjoy this proof. I managed to rub off part of the title of it, but apart from that it still looks pretty impeccable. And the book inside is just as gorgeous as the proof. So I'll tell you a little bit about it and then I'll tell you my thoughts. It's a retelling of the Nutcracker story, and it's set in the mythical world of Everwood, where the main character, who is a ballerina, is about to do a big performance that will change her life because it's also going to be her last performance. And instead of ending her ballet career and sort of settling down in society, she is transported to this magical world. And it's a really great book about a character figuring out who she is and what she wants. The writing is absolutely gorgeous and the world is so creative and clever, and I expected it to be quite a light read, and actually it's quite dark, some of the subjects it explores, and in true fairy tale fashion it takes some of those really, really creepy elements and puts them in a really fresh setting. So I absolutely love this. Mia's written other books as Maria Kuzniar, and she has this way of really evoking a sense of time and place and creating fantastic characters. So I'd recommend her middle grade series that starts with Ship of Shadows, and I would also definitely recommend this adult book which comes out in October this year, Midnight in Everwood. And the last book I read this month was Reputation by Lex Croucher, which I read on Kindle, so thank you NetGalley for the approval. And it was a really, really interesting read. I didn't expect it at all, actually. It's almost like Jane Austen is writing now. So it's told from that time period. It's about a girl who is sort of coming out into society for the first time and falls in with a group who set her onto a fun path, but also a path that gets her in lots of trouble and brings her reputation into question, hence the title. And I really liked how it was written very authentically, so it felt historically researched. The content, if you picked it up, you could almost, it could pass as something that was written a couple of 100 years ago, but it has that modern sensibility where it's able to question and sort of bring to light the things that women went through at that time, and in some ways are still going through. And I just really, really liked the writing style. I thought that the historical facts were really grounded in reality, and it was a fantastic debut, so I'm looking forward to seeing what Lex will write next. So that was it for my May reads, and I had a really good reading month, although I didn't read that much, and I've set myself a slightly ambitious reading list for next month, but that's because there's so many great books I want to read. So let's move on to that. First off, I'm hoping to finish the 2 books that I'm currently reading, which are Clown in a Cornfield by Adam Cesare, which I've started reading, and the reason I haven't quite finished yet is that I'm buddy reading it, so we're reading it at a slightly slower pace so that I can read it with my friend Shelley Toy. And this is a book where a girl moves to a new town in typical slasher fashion, and she starts to find out that this town is a really creepy place. And I like the fact that at the start of the book there's a lot of atmosphere building, and you're starting to work out that something isn't quite right in this town, and that is surrounded by these really creepy cornfields. And I love the fact that now I'm about halfway through the book and the slasher style has really kicked off, so the deaths have started and it's very fast-paced and tense. The writing is fantastic. It feels like you're watching a slasher film but in book form. I'm quite envious, I'm not going to lie. I always think that if I'm reading a book and I'm jealous of how well it's written, then that is a good sign. So I'm excited to see what happens next, and I know that Adam Cesare has written a lot more horror titles, so I'll be definitely checking those out. So that is one of my current reads. I've also just started today reading House of Hollow, and that is just because I haven't been able to resist for any longer. People keep telling me that I love this book. The cover has been attracting me from the moment I first saw it, and my first impression is that the writing is absolutely gorgeous. It's very evocative of the place, and it has this quite dreamy, creepy, sinister feel so far. So far I've learned that the main character has 2 sisters, and people find all 3 of them fascinating and appealing, partially because of something that happened to them when they were children. So it's had a really promising start. I've only read the first couple of chapters, so hopefully House of Hollow is one of my reads that I'll get through this month. So I'm looking at this stack of books. I'm a little nervous. I don't think I'm going to read it this month, but you know, I like to be ambitious. So I've also been hearing great things about My Best Friend's Exorcism, which is by Grady Hendrix, the author of The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires, which is a book I read last year and absolutely loved. And this one is slightly different. I'm not sure if it's YA or adult, so it'll be a nice surprise. But I think the title gives you a pretty big clue what it is about. It has sort of a YA horror feel, I think, even if it is an adult title. So I'm really, really excited to try this. I love books set in the 80s. And again, this is one that people keep telling me to read. So hopefully will be one that I'll get to this month. A book just to change. I've been reading a lot of horror and creepy books because that is what I love. But a couple of people have recommended The Kissing Booth to me. And it is by Beth Reekles. And there's a Netflix series, so Netflix film, I think, actually. So I'm really tempted to watch the film, but I've decided I'm going to read the book first as a bit of light relief between some of the darker things. So I'm going to read the back. I know a little bit about it, but I don't want to mangle the blurb. So, when Elle decides to run a kissing booth for the school carnival, she never imagined she'll sit in it herself, or that her first ever kiss will be with bad boy Noah. From that moment, her life is turned upside down. But is this a romance destined for happiness or heartbreak? I love the sound of that. It sounds really fun. Hopefully a bit of romance and drama, and a nice contrast to some of the things that I've been reading recently. So next up on the list, thank you Walker Books for sending me, which is All Our Hidden Gifts. It's by Caroline O'Donoghue, and just admire the cover for a moment. And this one is about tarot reading, which I always find fascinating, so I'll just read you the blurb to get an idea. So Maeve Chambers doesn't have any special gifts. That is until she finds a dusty old pack of tarot cards and starts giving uncannily accurate readings to everyone around her. When she reads for her ex-best friend Lily, a strange card appears in the deck, and everything goes wrong. Lily doesn't come to school the next day or the next, and Maeve knows she's been taken somewhere the police will never find her. Only the cards and something older, something even more powerful, can bring her back. And this book has got some fantastic quotes from people like Kieran Millward Hargrave, and I like the plot, how it feels quite timeless. It makes me think of 90s films like The Craft, but with a modern twist, so I'm really excited to read this one. Next up, I have got a manga video coming soon, and this is one of the first manga titles that I've decided to read. Whenever I've spoken to anybody recently about manga, they've recommended the author Junji Ito, and I love the covers of his books. I think that the premises sound really interesting. This one is a collection of short stories selected by the author himself, and I think I'm going to really enjoy these. I've heard that they're dark, and I like the fact that with manga, that because they're written in a slightly different way and using a different storytelling heritage, they're really unpredictable and sometimes really creepy reads in the case of this one. So I'm looking forward to reading that. And finally, I've got a few short story collections on my shelves, and short stories seem to be quite a popular form of late. So this one, Vampires Never Get Old, is one that I pre-ordered. I think this might be the American hardcover edition, and of course it's about vampires, but it is sort of a modern take on vampires, and I think quite a feminist take. It's written by all female authors, and they're called Tales with Fresh Bite because it is reinventing and reimagining the vampire myth. So it's got some fantastic authors involved, as you can see from the cover. I'll list them in the description, and I'm really excited to see what this book is like. So I don't think I'm going to get through all the books on my pile. I still have quite a tight deadline that I'm working to at the moment. So I think this month will be taken up quite a lot by writing, but hopefully I'll get a few of those books and at least finish the couple that I am currently reading. So thank you for watching my videos. As I mentioned, I've got some recent interviews with authors like Maria Kuzniar, and I've got an interview with Kat Ellis, and one with Andrina Cordani, the author of The Girl Who, that I recorded a few weeks ago. So thank you for checking out the content I've already recorded. I'm really enjoying this. I'm still very new to YouTube, but I'm learning a lot and having a lot of fun doing it. So thank you everyone for watching. I hope you will like and subscribe and chat to me on social media about books. Thank you. Bye.